Hi guys, my name is Dana Ferrant, and just a brief introduction. So if you didn't read my welcome post, I, like you, have been through having lived with a narcissist. I grew up with one, and then I ended up marrying one. And then the thing is that over the time since I've left that relationship with my ex, I've spent a lot of time figuring out what it actually takes to untangle from the narcissist. And there's specific things that are different from, just separating from a normal person, because you're not dealing with a normal person. So Susan invited me to come and share some of my expertise, because I've been studying this personality for a long time, and, working with different tools that actually work to give you freedom from the narcissist. So tiny little bit about me. So if you have questions or whatever, I don't know how many people we're going to get on here live, but you're welcome to post questions throughout this live if there's things that you want to know more specifically. Although from what I've seen from the posts and comments here, I think you guys are very much aware of what the narcissist is. And I want to kind of, take it that next step further and say, okay, well, you know what they are. You know that, their personality type is always going to be this troublemaker. They're always looking to stir the pot. And, one thing that you may not be aware of is that they are looking to feed off of your emotional response. So positive or negative, they're looking to feed off of your emotional response, which is why everybody says it is so important for you to just no contact with the narcissist, if at all possible. And if that's not possible, then you need to get yourself to a place where you don't respond, you don't react. And I think one of the biggest things that when I'm talking to people, the biggest piece here is getting rid of the need to show them that they're wrong. Because this loop, and I have been there, I have so been there myself. That was probably the toughest piece for me to let go of, was this constant need to show them that they're wrong, hoping that that would somehow get them to change their ways. They will never see that they're wrong, because they're not wrong. In their mind, they're never wrong. So give it up. That's never going to happen. B, that doesn't lead them to be able to feed off of your emotional response if they admit that they're wrong. So that's not going to work. And C, the thing is that it's about you. Your freedom, your personal freedom is compromised when you're expecting them or hoping for them to see that they're wrong. Okay? So the biggest thing for your personal freedom is getting to a place where you can be okay with their lies, okay with their manipulation. And I'm not saying that we're going to say that this is okay behavior, you're going to put up with it, but okay in the sense of you're just going to remove yourself as much as possible from it. And that is what creates the personal freedom for you. So as long as you are engaging with them in order to try to get them to see that they're wrong, in order to get them to change their behavior, you're going to lose. And that's the hard piece, is that, you don't want to lose your personal freedom chasing this, tale of trying to show them that they're wrong, trying to show other people that they're wrong. All of that behavior, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you in effort and time. It's going to cost you in, emotional strain, stress, all those things. So, the tools and techniques that I take people through, I'm not sure how much we're going to get into tonight, but it is all about disconnecting the emotional charge so that you have personal freedom. Because what's happening is that you get connected with them and it fires off your triggers. It fires off that, that emotional response. And then, you're sucked right back in there. You're back into the thing. They win because you are emotionally charged again. So the process of, disconnecting and, just keep disconnecting from the need to show them that they're wrong, the need to have that validated for you. We need to get you to the place where it's your validation is the only validation that you need. Whether anybody else gets it or not, doesn't matter. You can get your validation from other people here in the support group, but know that it's knowing the truth is really the only thing that's important here. It doesn't matter if anybody else gets it or doesn't get it. If you get it, that's enough. And, so being able to separate that piece where you're no longer waiting for somebody to validate the fact that, yes, you were hurt. Yes, you were abused. You don't need anybody else to validate that. But changing the dynamics, changing it so that you get free. And I get it. Like, I'm out the other side and quite a few years past, and I get this. And so, but I can remember being in those early days and being so angry. And I also know that being angry didn't help me. So having, lots of deep breathing, this is the first tool that I want to give you. I want to talk to you about A, breathing, and B, expanding your energy field out, because those are the two primary tools that are really going to make a dynamic difference for you, in that it allows you to disperse the charge that's going on in your system. So the deep breathing, you've heard this before, but basically the best tool with breathing that I find the simplest is twice as long exhale as inhale. That is a way to shift your physiological response in your body. So here's what happens when you are undergoing stress. We'll talk about the neurology and the physiology of your body. When you're in a heightened stress response, then your body sends off these chemicals. It sends off, all of these little signals and things are going on in your brain. The more stressed you are, the more these are firing off. And the more it reduces your ability to think, because you go into this automatic response, an automatic situational firing in your brain. And that is where, that's how you've been able to be gaslighted, is because the narcissist fires off all of the emotional response. And so it's like, for you, this is why I say it is so vital for you to get your emotions under control so that you can have the cognitive functions available to think clearly and to see what's going on, not just being emotionally charged. Okay. So the breathing helps to flip that switch from that stimulated sympathetic response where you are, you're charged and you're just like in that, right? You felt this. A lot of you are probably still living in that day to day. So when you take a nice deep breath and you exhale for twice as long as you inhale, and you do that a few times, what you're going to do is you're going to start to switch the system to what is called the parasympathetic response. So sympathetic is the stress, parasympathetic is relaxation. And so the parasympathetic lowers your blood pressure, lowers, that reactionary response, starts to settle in the relaxation, and it starts to free up the brain so that you can think clearly. Okay. So that is why the breathing is so important. And I want you to practice the breathing at times when you're not connected to the narcissist. So small stimuluses, getting that breathing under control on a regular basis is really, really good for your body. So that's the first level. And I know that's really basic. Second is taking your energy field and expanding out. So, and this is one where it's like, some people don't get it. It's not difficult. I want you to think in terms of, this is like the easiest thing. So look for what is super easy. Don't make it hard. Okay. And so I'm just going to take you through with some questions. And if you just let yourself, first take a deep breath, right? Take a nice deep breath in and out. And then take your energy field, and your energy is like, you have a physical body and you have an energy system. So your nervous system is part of your energy system. Your emotions are part of your energy system. And there's also what some people call your aura. And that part of your energy system can be quite large. So what you're going to do is you're just going to play with it. It's like, I wonder what it would feel like if I was as big as the room. And we're talking energetically as big. We're not physically going to be as big. So I wonder what it would feel like if I was as big as the room. And what's going to happen for a lot of people who, if you are in a highly stressed situation all the time and you're still in that PTSD or chronic anxiety, is that it's going to feel scary to expand out. So I want you to do the deep breathing. It's like, well, what if it was safe? Because you're just expanding out energetically, and you get to decide. You get to decide how much space you take up. And here's the thing, is that I want to just explain why this is actually safer. Because I get that initially when I invite people to expand out and they've been through a lot of stress and trauma, it's like, it can be the scariest thing in the world to say, expand out as big as the room, or we're going to go way bigger than that. But the thing is that it's kind of like with martial arts, in that when an attacker is coming at you, if you try to block them, if you try to physically block them, right? And you hold a stance where you're physically blocking them. If somebody is charging at you, doesn't matter how strong you are, they're going to knock you over. But in the martial arts, if you move just at the last minute and you use their kinetic energy to just let them fall, right? You move out of the way and you drop them on the ground. Now you're using their energy against themselves and they fall. And so what you're doing is it's effortless for you. You can just like take one finger and just drop them. And that's the difference on an energy level. So we have stuff that's kind of coming at us all of the time. We're aware of what's going on with other people all of the time. And what we tend to do, what we're taught to do wrongly, unfortunately, we're taught to pull in thinking that that is going to make us safe. It's like if I make myself really, really small and I just curl up in a little ball energetically, then I'm safe. And what happens is that you're actually impacted more when you do that. When you pull in really, really tight, something gets in at one little spot, it gets stuck in there because there's nowhere for it to move. Sorry. Because you're compact. And so when you're compact, then all this stuff starts sticking, lobbing onto you and compiling. And so you start feeling other people's emotions and stress even more, and it piles onto yours. So instead, if you expand out and you're spacious like the wind, there's nothing to hook onto with the wind. There's nothing for it to stick to, for, those arrows. The arrows will just drop. They just go on by. They can't stick to the wind. So that's the idea with this, is that we want to expand out and be so much space that we can't get stuck. All right. And when we are that much space, when we're really, really expanded out, then we get to choose. We can see, we can sense what's coming at us. We can just kind of like duck and weave, a little bit of a, Matrix moment, right? We just bob and weave out of the way of the bullets coming at us. And it actually allows you to be a lot more safe if you're expanded out. So I want you to take a deep breath and just let all of that fear drain out through your feet. It's like, what if that's not even true? What if you're actually safer if you're expanded out? And the only way to know is to try it. So I want you to just for a moment, you can go back to being compacted and contracted after this, but I want you to try it. So you're going to work with me. So it's like, what would it feel like if I was as big as the world? Right? Sorry, I did too big of a leap. So what would it feel like if I was as big as the room? And then let's go, what would it feel like if I'm as big as the city that I'm in? And then what would it feel like if I was as big as the state or province that I'm in, depending on where you are in the world? What would it feel like if I was as big as the country or continent, depending, some countries are small, so maybe the continent. I'm in Canada. Canada's a very big country, so just big. What if I was as big as Canada? And what if I was as big as the world? What would it feel like? And then we just take a big quantum leap out. What would it feel like if I was as big as the solar system? And keep going. What would it feel like if I was as big as the galaxy? What would it feel like if I was as big as the universe? And it's not for your brain to engage in. It's just a way to feel it. What would it feel like if I was as big as the universe? And then notice, is there a little more ease and space in your body? with doing that. And that's the idea. See, when you have more room to kind of be flexible, to move around, now you have that ability to be that ninja warrior, to move and flex and avoid the crap that's coming at you. Okay? So it does take practice, I'm not gonna lie, but it is completely worth it. And what I suggest to people is you take your phone, because everybody has a phone, and you get an alarm set up. There's an app called Life Reminders if you want it. There's a few other ones that are similar, where you can set up a special ringtone. And I want you to set it up for every half hour. So little birds chirping, or maybe the ocean, or something subtle, not a big kind of thing happening. So something subtle that reminds you to take a deep breath, or 3 or 4, and expand out. So it's a nanosecond kind of thing once you train yourself a little bit, right? The time that it takes you to take a deep breath, you can be expanded out as big as the universe. If you start doing that on a regular basis, every half hour, I promise you it will make a huge difference to your life. I am a highly sensitive person. I am what they consider an empath, that typical, stereotypical personality type that the narcissists love. The feeling person. And honestly, this is one of the key tools that I use to make myself unappealing to the narcissist. So if you want to get to the space where you are unappealing to any other narcissist, including the one that is currently an annoying fucker in your life, I'm potty mouth. I've been holding back, but so if you want to, then make a point of making this a daily practice. Get something in place to remind you, because you're not going to remember on your own, especially if you are still dealing with PTSD, if you are still dealing with any kind of chronic anxiety disorder, or general disorder, general anxiety. Somebody had posted that, general anxiety disorder. If you're dealing with any of those things, you're not going to remember, because your brain is already used up in the stress response. So we need to shift that stress response. This is one of the key tools in shifting the stress response. So expanding out and deep breathing are the foundational tools for actually shifting what's going on. So those are the pieces that I wanted to make sure that we cover today. There's like so much that we could talk about, but I want you to play with these couple of pieces. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if you have questions. I am going to be putting together an opt-in page for a healing session that I've done. I've been creating a series for healing after the narcissist. So the first one is free. You just have to opt in. Trade you an email address for a free session. Kind of a cool trade. So that will walk you through more of the deeper process of what I do to actually unlock people from the energy disruptions. And that's the next layer. So there's some deeper stuff that we do with getting people unhooked from all of the emotional trauma, so that you, again, like, it's about getting you to a place where you can be level. Your energy can be level. But first things first, lots of breathing, lots of expanding out. Let me know how that goes, and I will keep you posted as soon as that opt-in page is up. Probably next week, as soon as my team is all back to work and I can give them this task. So have a fantastic evening, morning, or whatever it is for you. And feel free to tag me if you have specific questions, and then I can pop in here and answer those. So, have fun.